You're not gonna believe this, but what I'm about to tell you is the craziest story of how my own wife blindsided me at our college reunion of all places. And no, I didn't catch her because she slipped up or had some guilty meltdown. That would have almost been easier. The truth? I only found out because someone else pulled me aside and told me straight up. And when I started digging around for answers, I ended up uncovering something way darker than a one-time fling. This wasn't just a moment of weakness, it was a whole second life she'd been living behind my back. So what did I do with that information? Let's just say I made damn sure she'd carry the weight of that betrayal for the rest of her life. But the best part? 2 years later, just when she thought she had everything figured out, I stepped back into her world and flipped it upside down. But hold up, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rewind to where it all began. The night everything fell apart. My name's John Halden, and I spent 22 years married to a woman I truly believed was my forever, Rachel Halden. We met in the late 90s at Western Coast University, 2 kids fresh out of high school with big plans and zero clue what life had in store. Rachel had this way of walking into a room and instantly grabbing everyone's attention. And it wasn't just about her looks, though. Yeah, she was beautiful. It was her presence. Loud, funny, sharp. She could make you feel like you were the only one in the room just by looking at you. Together, we built a whole life. Got a house in Oak Ridge, raised 2 amazing kids, and went through all the ups and downs like any couple does. And honestly, up until that one night, I never had a single reason to think she could do what she did. So when the invite for our 30-year college reunion came in, I didn't hesitate for a second. Sounded fun. But Rachel? She was over the moon about it. She talked about that reunion nonstop, who might show up, how people might look now, and whether or not Gavin Mercer would be there. Yeah, looking back, I really should have paid more attention to that last part. We flew into Oak Ridge on a Friday afternoon, checked into this nice hotel near downtown Brookhaven, and started getting ready for the big night. The reunion was at some fancy country club, huge ballroom, classy decorations, a live band playing all those 90s hits, and an open bar that never seemed to run dry. Stepping inside felt like walking into a time capsule. Old faces I hadn't seen in decades were suddenly all around, just older versions of the same folks I used to share beer and cramming sessions with. Lots of hugs, laughs, and catching up. And then I saw him, Gavin Mercer. If you knew Gavin back in the day, you'd remember he was the kind of guy who didn't know when to quit. Had a thing for Rachel all through college. He followed her around like a shadow even when she and I were already together. Thought his money and charm made him untouchable. Even after we got married, the guy couldn't help himself, always throwing out some slick comment every time we ran into him. And now? He looked exactly the same. Same smirk, same shiny watch, same smug attitude. Rachel Halden. Damn, you haven't aged a day, Gavin said, throwing his arms open like he expected her to run into them. I felt my jaw tighten as I watched her face light up. She laughed way too much and gave him a big hug. My stomach did a slow twist, but I brushed it off. I told myself to relax. I trusted her. So I tried to enjoy the night. Had a couple of beers, caught up with old friends, and listened to the band playing in the background. Meanwhile, Rachel was bouncing around the room like a pinball, chatting, laughing, lighting up every conversation. But no matter where she was, Gavin wasn't far. At one point, I saw her lean in real close as he whispered something in her ear. Still, I kept telling myself, relax, man. They're just reminiscing. No big deal. But then she vanished. At first, I didn't think much of it. The place was huge, people were coming and going, and maybe she just stepped outside to catch her breath. Then 30 minutes passed. And that's when I started to get uneasy. Right then, Liam Hay walked up to me. Now Liam? He's not the type to stir up drama. Always been a straight shooter. So when he hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck, I knew something was up. John, he said, I don't want to cause trouble, but I just saw Rachel and Gavin sneaking out together. Didn't look right, man. I just stood there for a second, trying to process it. I let out a nervous chuckle. You sure? Maybe they just. He shook his head, cutting me off. I wouldn't be telling you if I wasn't sure. They left through the side door. My mouth went dry. I gave him a tight nod and said, thanks, Liam. I appreciate it. He held my gaze for a moment, then patted my shoulder and walked off. I let out a long breath and set my drink down. Suddenly, the music felt louder, the room too hot, like the walls were closing in. I scanned the crowd. Still no sign of her. Pulled out my phone, no new texts. No missed calls. That uneasy feeling in my gut? It wasn't going anywhere. I tried to stay calm. Maybe she'd come strolling back in any minute and I'd feel like a fool. But she didn't. And deep down, I already knew the truth. The car ride back to the hotel? Dead silent. I'm talking the kind of silence that buzzes in your ears. Outside, Oak Ridge was still alive, bars lit up, people laughing on sidewalks, engines humming at red lights. But inside that car? Just the low hum of the AC and the occasional buzz from Rachel's phone while she scrolled, pretending like I wasn't sitting inches away. I kept my hands tight on the steering wheel, eyes glued to the road, but my mind? It was all over the place. And that, my friend, was just the beginning. Liam's words kept bouncing around in my head like an echo I couldn't shake. I don't want to start anything, but I saw Rachel and Gavin sneaking off together. It didn't look good, man. I cleared my throat, trying to keep my voice steady even though my insides were a mess. So, where'd you run off to? I asked casually. Rachel didn't even lift her eyes from her phone. Huh? She mumbled, distracted. I glanced sideways at her, trying to read her expression. Liam said he saw you leave with Gavin. That got her attention. She locked her phone, let out this long, annoyed sigh, and finally turned toward me with this look like I was the problem. Oh, come on. We were just catching up, she snapped. Are you seriously jealous right now? I let out a dry laugh, more out of disbelief than anything. Jealous? No. But suspicious? Yeah. Absolutely. She rolled her eyes so hard it was like she rehearsed it. John, don't be ridiculous. Then explain it. What were you two doing? I asked, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. She shook her head slowly like she was talking to a child who couldn't grasp simple logic. We were talking. That's all. Talking about what, exactly? She shifted in her seat and looked out the window like she couldn't be bothered. Old times? College stuff. Life. The usual. Then why not just tell me where you were? She turned back to me, her face hard now. Because I knew you'd blow it out of proportion. Just like you are now. I clenched my jaw so tight it hurt. I forced myself to keep quiet. I wasn't about to say something I couldn't take back. Instead, I turned down Van Buren Street toward our hotel. The roads were pretty empty, just a few cars drifting out of diners and late-night gas stations. I tried to focus on the traffic, but my brain was stuck in overdrive. I'd been married to this woman for over 2 decades. I knew her. I knew how she looked when she was lying. And right then? She was lying through her teeth. We pulled into the hotel lot. She unbuckled her seatbelt before I even put the truck in park. I'm exhausted, she muttered. Then she opened the door and walked off like nothing had happened, heading toward the lobby without looking back. I just sat there, hands frozen on the wheel, staring blankly at the dashboard, trying to make sense of what the hell just happened. Something was off. Way off. By the time I got up to the room, she was already in bed. She had on one of those oversized t-shirts she always slept in, wrapped in blankets, turned away from me like she'd been sleeping for hours. But I knew better. She wasn't asleep. Not even close. I stood in the doorway for a while, just watching her. The soft city lights filtered through the curtains, casting this faint glow over the room. I could see her shoulder, perfectly still, too still, like she was waiting to see if I'd say anything. I didn't. I walked over to my side, sat on the edge of the bed, and rubbed my face with both hands. Liam had seen them leave together. And now? Rachel was pretending none of it ever happened. She just wanted to erase the night like it was a bad dream. I laid back on the mattress, staring up at the ceiling. The hum of the air conditioner was the only sound in the room, steady and dull. But my mind was loud. I kept replaying everything, how Gavin looked at her, how she laughed at every dumb thing he said, how she shut me down the second I asked a simple question. Something wasn't adding up. And deep in my gut, I already knew the truth, I just didn't have the proof yet. The next morning? You'd think she woke up in a romantic comedy. She was cheerful, humming while brushing her hair in the mirror, acting like we were just any old couple enjoying a weekend trip. She even leaned over and kissed my cheek before disappearing into the bathroom like nothing was wrong. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, still stuck in the mess from the night before. Liam's warning, Rachel's reaction, and most of all, that empty look in her eyes when I brought up Gavin. It was all still running laps in my head. I knew Rachel, and I knew she was hiding something. At breakfast, she barely looked at me. She scrolled through her phone, sipping her coffee like I wasn't even there. Every now and then, she'd smile at something on her screen, then turn to stare out the window, like I was just some stranger she happened to sit across from. That's when I made up my mind. I needed answers. Real ones. The second we got back to Oak Ridge, I made a decision. The next day, I walked into this tiny office squeezed between a gun shop and a bail bond place. It was dim, smelled like burnt coffee and old paper, and had the kind of flickering overhead light that made everything feel a little colder. That's where I met Cole Benton. He was an ex-cop, mid-45, with a silver beard and eyes that looked like they'd seen some serious stuff. His desk was a mess. Papers everywhere, an empty coffee mug, and a few rubber-banded files stacked to the side. He gave me a once-over as I walked in. "John Halden." I nodded and took a seat across from him. "I need to know if my wife's cheating on me." Cole leaned back in his chair, arms folded. "Name: Rachel Halden. And the guy: Gavin Mercer." Cole grabbed a legal pad and jotted the names down. "You got a reason to think something's going on?" I let out a long breath through my nose. "Call it a gut feeling." Cole tapped his pen on the desk. "Gut's usually right. You want me to look at just the recent stuff? Or dig deeper?" I clenched my jaw and looked him dead in the eye. "I want everything." He nodded once and flipped to a clean page in his notebook. Then he started asking questions: Rachel's schedule, my business trips, places Gavin might have been. Anything that could help him start connecting the dots. By the time I walked out of there, he was already making calls. And the next 4 weeks felt like watching a car crash in slow motion. I had no idea what I was about to uncover. But I knew one thing: Rachel was still playing pretend like everything was normal. And I was done pretending. She went about her days like nothing had happened. Texting in the evenings, heading out with her girlfriends for drinks, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. She even asked me if I wanted to book a weekend spa trip with her to Sierra Springs. Like we were just your average happy couple. I played along, kept my head down, acted like I was none the wiser. She didn't notice that I'd stopped asking her where she was going. Didn't see that I no longer started up casual conversations. And she definitely didn't pick up on the fact that I was quietly tracking everything, jotting down each time she left the house, how often she seemed a little too excited to run errands, and the way she started dressing up just to grab a loaf of bread from the store. Then came a Tuesday afternoon. That's when Cole called. His voice was steady, calm even, but his words sliced through me like ice. "John, I've got something. You'll want to come in for this." The second I walked through his office door, I could feel it. The weight in the room. No chit-chat, no warm-up. Cole reached into a manila folder, pulled out a thick stack of documents and photos, and slid them across the desk like he was handing me a loaded weapon. My hands felt heavy as I picked up the first sheet. It was a hotel receipt from 3 months ago. The Hilton in Newport City. Rachel Halden. Gavin Mercer. 1 room. I locked my jaw and flipped to the next page. Another receipt. Different city, different hotel. 5 months back. Then another. And another. My breathing slowed, each page a punch to the gut. These weren't just recent. These went back 5 years. Then came the photos. The first one, Rachel and Gavin walking into a hotel, plain as day. Her arm brushing his hand on the small of her back. Next one, Gavin holding open the door to a room, and Rachel glancing over her shoulder like she knew she was doing something she shouldn't. Another, Rachel leaving a hotel in the early morning, her hair a mess, Gavin a few paces behind. I gripped the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles went white. I wasn't sure if I wanted to scream or throw up. Cole leaned forward. His voice was calm, but firm. "This didn't start at the reunion, John." He paused, letting that sink in before continuing. "She's been meeting up with Gavin for at least 5 years. Same pattern. A few times a year." I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. "Every time I was on a business trip?" Cole nodded. "Every single one." I leaned back, the room suddenly feeling smaller, tighter, like it was closing in. But he wasn't done yet. He slid 1 more page across the desk. Recovered texts. I didn't want to read them. I really didn't. But my eyes dropped to the words anyway. "Gavin, next week? Same place? Rachel, of course. I miss you. Gavin, how's John? Still clueless? Rachel, always. He's gone for work. We'll have the whole weekend." I dropped the page like it burned my hands. My fingers trembled. My stomach churned. Cole let out a sigh and rubbed his jaw. "I'm sorry, man." I gave a slight nod, swallowing down the bile rising in my throat. "This wasn't some one-night slip," I said quietly. "No," Cole agreed. "This was calculated. Repeated. Cold. And just like that, everything made sense. All the odd moments. All the little lies. All the gut feelings I had ignored for years. Later that evening, just after 6 p.m., I pulled into our driveway, hands gripping the steering wheel like I was trying to rip it off. The envelope sat on the seat next to me, its contents practically pulsing with betrayal. Rachel's car was already in the garage. She was home, probably lighting candles and pouring wine like it was just another Tuesday. I took a deep breath, trying to slow my pulse, then grabbed the envelope and headed inside. The smell of garlic and roasted chicken hit me first. Something soft and acoustic played from her phone on the counter. Rachel stood by the stove, humming to herself, stirring a pot of mashed potatoes like she didn't have a secret life. She turned when she heard the door open, smiling that warm, familiar smile. The one that used to feel like home. "Hey, you're home early," she said, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. "I thought you had that late meeting?" I didn't say a word. Just walked over to the island and dropped the envelope on the countertop with a sharp slap. She blinked, confused. "What's that?" "Open it," I said, my voice quiet. Controlled, but deadly. She hesitated, clearly sensing something was off. "John, what is this?" "Just open it, Rachel." A beat passed. Then she slowly reached forward, opened the flap, and pulled out the top few photos. The ones of her and Gavin at the Hilton. Her looking over her shoulder, him holding the door. I kept my eyes on her face. First came confusion. Then came recognition. Then something else entirely. Not guilt. Not regret. Annoyance. She set the pictures down with a scoff. "Are you serious right now?" "You tell me," I replied, my voice low. "What am I looking at?" She crossed her arms, tilted her head like I was the one being ridiculous. "You went through my stuff? Hired someone to follow me?" I stared at her, stunned. That's what she was leading with. I reached back into the envelope, pulled out the stack of hotel receipts with her name right there in black and white. And at that moment I realized she wasn't sorry. Not one bit. His name was printed there, again and again, like a damn signature of betrayal. I slammed the stack of papers onto the counter with a loud smack. "Explain this," I said, my voice shaking with restrained fury. Rachel just shook her head and let out this dry, almost mocking laugh. "John, this doesn't prove anything." "Really?" I asked, staring at her like I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. "Hotel rooms? With Gavin? Multiple times a year? For 5 years? That's your definition of friendship. You're blowing this way out of proportion," she snapped, rolling her eyes like I was being dramatic. "What's insane," I said, stepping in closer, "is that you're still standing there lying to my face when I have actual proof in my hands." She grabbed her wine glass, took a long sip like she was the one who needed a break, and then set it down with a loud clink. "You know what," she said, meeting my eyes. "Maybe if you hadn't been so busy all the time, so obsessed with work and your routines, I wouldn't have needed someone to talk to." The words hit me like a punch straight to the chest. "Say that again," I said, almost too calmly. She straightened her posture, chin raised like she had something to prove. "You heard me," she said. "You haven't seen me in years, John." "Not really. You're always checked out, always buried in your emails or projects. So yeah, maybe it felt good to have someone actually listen for once." I stared at her, hands gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. "So this is my fault?" She didn't respond. Just stood there. I bit down the boiling rage and shook my head in disbelief. "Unreal," I muttered. I reached over, pulled out one of the printed texts from the envelope and held it up between 2 fingers. "How's John?" "Still clueless." I held it in front of her face. Was I clueless, Rachel? Her eyes locked on the paper. Her jaw clenched. But she still didn't look sorry. No guilt. No remorse. Just irritation. Like she was mad I'd found out. And that's when it hit me. She didn't regret cheating. She didn't feel bad about the lies or the sneaking around or the years of betrayal. The only thing she regretted? Not covering her tracks better. That realization landed on me like a freight train. I nodded slowly, letting out a breath through my nose. "Got it," I said quietly. Then I turned and walked toward the hallway. "Where are you going?" she called after me, but I didn't answer. Because I knew if I stayed in that kitchen one more second, I'd say something I couldn't take back. And honestly, she didn't deserve that kind of energy from me. I stopped in the hallway, staring down at the floor, my heart pounding in my chest like it wanted to break free. Behind me, I could hear her pacing, her footsteps clicking across the tile, muttering under her breath, glass clinking again as she poured another drink. Still acting like I was the unreasonable one. That's when I knew I couldn't stay here. Not another minute. I walked into the bedroom like a ghost, grabbed an old duffel bag from the closet, unzipped it, and just started tossing in whatever I could grab. Shirts, jeans, socks. I didn't care what I packed. I just needed out. What I felt in that moment wasn't just anger. It was something deeper. Heavier. I was done. I walked back down the hallway, duffel over my shoulder, keys in one hand, wallet in the other. As I passed the kitchen, I caught her eye. She looked up from her phone, a slight frown tugging at her face. Her eyes flicked down to the bag, and that's when it hit her. "What the hell are you doing?" she asked. I didn't answer. Just kept moving toward the front door. "John." Her voice had an edge now. The click of her heels followed me down the hall. "Where the hell are you going?" I reached for the doorknob. Paused. Turned around slowly to face her. She was a few feet away, arms crossed, but that confident mask was starting to crack. And for the first time I saw it, panic. Real panic in her eyes. She thought I'd yell. Thought I'd argue, maybe cry, maybe even fight to fix it. She thought I'd stay. Instead, I just looked her dead in the eye and said the last words I'd ever say inside that house. "Somewhere you can't lie to me anymore." Then I walked out the door. I tossed the bag onto the passenger seat of my truck, climbed in, and fired up the engine. The porch lights cast a soft glow across the yard, and the house sat still behind me like a museum of memories I no longer believed in. For a moment I half expected her to come storming out, scream, beg, chase after me. But she didn't. She just stood at the window, phone in hand, probably texting Nancy or one of her friends about how I was the dramatic one. I backed out of the driveway and never looked back. I didn't even drive far. I found a small hotel tucked away off Central Avenue in downtown Oak Ridge. Checked in under a different name. Paid cash. The girl at the front desk gave me a weird look, like she was trying to figure out why a middle-aged guy with nothing but a duffel bag looked like he was 5 seconds from falling apart. I didn't say a word. Just took the key card and headed to my room. Once I got there, I locked the door behind me and stood in the silence. And for the first time in years, I was alone. Not lonely. Just alone. But even in that quiet hotel room, I had no idea how much more there was to uncover. The second I sat down on the edge of that hotel bed, everything finally hit me like a freight train to the chest. 22 years. Gone. Just gone. The family we built? The love I thought we had? The life we created, piece by piece? All of it up in smoke. I let out a long, slow breath and rubbed my face with both hands. I felt completely hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left the shell behind. But buried underneath all that pain was something else. Something quieter. Colder. Relief. Because for the first time in a long time I didn't have to guess. I didn't have to wonder anymore. I knew the truth. And the very next morning I did what had to be done. I called a divorce lawyer. His name was Victor Shaw. Sharp suit, silver hair, probably early 55. The kind of guy who'd seen every type of marriage fall apart and didn't flinch at the ugliest ones. His office was on the top floor of a downtown Oak Ridge high-rise, all-glass walls and oak furniture, with a view that made it feel like the rest of the world was somewhere far below me. I sat across from him, hands folded in my lap, while he flipped through the file I brought, photos, receipts, texts, all of it. The evidence. After a few minutes, he set the papers down and adjusted his glasses. His expression didn't change. "I take it you're not here for a reconciliation?" I let out a breathless laugh. "Not even a little." He nodded slowly, tapping his fingers against the edge of the desk. "Good. That makes things easier." He grabbed a fresh page in his legal pad and got right to it. "First thing, cut all contact. No texts. No calls. No messages. Don't even check her social media. Let me and my team handle everything from here." I clenched my jaw and gave a single nod. "Done." "Second," he said, flipping to another sheet. "Do you want to fight this out in court? Or make a clean break?" And yeah, part of me thought about it. About dragging her through the same hell she put me through. About making her hurt. But when I really sat with it, I didn't want revenge. I just wanted her gone. "I don't care about punishing her," I said. "I just want her out of my life." Victor studied me for a moment, then gave a single nod of approval. "That's the right call," he said. "Let's get started." The moment I walked out of that office, I blocked her number. Every number. I blocked her on social media. Deleted her from every app and thread. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight. I was just going to disappear. And let her sit in the silence, watching me walk away. A week passed. 7 full days without a single word. No calls. No texts. No emails. I didn't check the house. Didn't ask how she was doing. I just let Victor handle it all while I tried to figure out what the next chapter of my life was supposed to look like. I didn't regret walking away. Not once. But I did wonder when it would finally hit her. Turns out, it hit her on a Thursday morning. While I was sitting in my hotel room sipping coffee, scrolling through listings for one-bedroom apartments, Rachel was back at the house, the same house we used to call ours, probably in her silk robe on her second cup of coffee, still thinking I was just taking space. Still believing I'd come home eventually. Then came the knock at the door. 3 sharp, deliberate knocks. She wasn't expecting anyone. She walked through the house, past the photos of us on the walls, past the kitchen where she used to laugh at Gavin's texts behind my back, and opened the door. A man in a dark suit and sunglasses stood on the porch. Mid-40s. All business. He held out a large envelope. Rachel Halden? She frowned. Yes. Without skipping a beat, he extended the envelope. You've been served. She froze, hands still at her sides. The man waited a few seconds, then calmly set the envelope on the little table by the door. Have a good day, ma'am. And with that, he turned around and walked away. The door clicked shut behind him, and Rachel just stood there, frozen in the doorway, staring down at the envelope like it might explode. She thought I was still angry, thought I'd come back after a few days, that I just needed time, that we'd talk, and she'd say all the right things, and eventually everything would return to normal. But this was not what she expected. Her hands trembled as she ripped open the envelope. Dissolution of marriage, state of Vermont. The words blurred in front of her eyes. She flipped through the pages like maybe she had misread something, like there had been some mistake. But there it was, clear as day. My name. Her name. The date we got married. The division of assets. The legal end to our story. She collapsed onto the couch. The papers spread across her lap, eyes glassy and unfocused. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't me cooling off. This was real. And for the first time since I walked out, she finally understood what that meant. Her hands shook as she opened her phone. She pulled up my name and hit call. Call failed. She tried again. Call failed. A jolt of panic shot through her chest. She opened our text thread, her thumbs moving so fast she nearly dropped the phone. Rachel, John. Rachel. Please. Rachel. Just talk to me. But I never saw those messages. Because I was already gone. We need to talk. Please call me. That was the first message she sent. It went through, but after 10 seconds, that little read notification didn't show up. She stared at her screen. Waited. Nothing. She typed again. Faster this time. Rachel. John. Please. Just talk to me. Still nothing. For the first time in our 22-year marriage, her messages weren't important enough for me to read. And for the first time in her life, I wasn't there. Her breathing turned shallow, uneven, panic creeping in. She scrolled through her contacts and hit the call button for our son, Logan. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, Mom. Logan, she blurted out, sitting up straighter. I need you to call your father. He's not answering me. There was a long pause on the other end. Mom, what did you expect? Her stomach sank. What do you mean? He won't even talk to me. Yeah, Mom. Logan cut in, his voice quieter now. Because he's divorcing you. She shut her eyes tight, voice cracking. Logan, please. You don't understand. I need to explain. Explain what? His tone shifted, sharper now. That you lied to him for 5 years? That you kept sneaking around with some loser from college like Dad was too dumb to notice? Tears stung the corners of her eyes. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Silence. Logan let out a long sigh. Look, I'm not trying to take sides. But Dad told me everything. And honestly, another pause. This one longer. I don't blame him for walking away. Her voice cracked again. Logan, don't do this. I need my family. I need... He didn't yell. He didn't raise his voice. He just said the one sentence that landed like a blade across her heart. Then you should have thought about that before you betrayed him. The line went dead. She sat there frozen, phone limp in her hand, staring blankly at the divorce papers spread across her lap. She tried calling our daughter next, Sophie. Straight to voicemail. She sent 3 more messages to me after that. Still nothing. And that's when it finally hit her like a wrecking ball to the chest. I wasn't coming back. I wasn't going to hear her out. I wasn't going to play the fool anymore. I was gone. And there wasn't a damn thing she could do to stop it. The divorce was finalized on a blazing hot Wednesday afternoon inside a quiet courtroom tucked in the heart of downtown Oak Ridge. I sat beside Victor Shaw, calm and composed, listening as the judge read through the settlement. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life dissolve through a pane of glass. Rachel sat across from me, dressed in a navy blue pantsuit. Her hands were folded in her lap, her expression tight. She looked thinner than I remembered, drawn, tired. But she still carried that same edge. That same defiant look in her eyes. Like maybe, just maybe, she thought I'd change my mind at the last second. I didn't. Oregon is a community property state. Everything gets split 50-50ths. Doesn't matter who cheated or who lied. Victor had warned me adultery doesn't change how the assets are divided. And yeah, I had enough evidence to build a bonfire. Hotel receipts, surveillance shots, recovered texts. But none of it would make a difference in court. I could have fought. I could have dragged this out for months. I could have made her bleed. But I didn't care about revenge. I just wanted peace. She got the house, the same one we built our life in. The same house where we raised our kids, strung lights on the porch every Liampmas, had backyard cookouts and Sunday morning pancakes. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. Hadn't since the day I walked out. I'd already taken everything I cared about weeks ago. Now it was just four walls and a graveyard of memories. And from what Sophie told me, Rachel barely stayed there anymore. Said the place felt too quiet. Too cold. Like it echoed now. And honestly, that felt fitting. When it came to money, the split was clean. I took my share, just over $500,000, and walked. No second thoughts. No regrets. Rachel had assumed I'd stash the money away for our future. The retirement we once talked about. That lake house in Maple Rock or maybe Pinehurst. But that future was dead. Instead, I used it to start over somewhere else. I never told her where I was going. She'd never find out. That's what cut deepest for her, not the house, not the money. It was the kids. Logan and Sophie had tried to stay neutral at first. They loved their mom. They didn't want to pick sides. But once they knew the whole truth, they couldn't look at her the same. Logan, our oldest, was the first to say it out loud. "Mom, you ruined our family." "Not Dad. You." Sophie wasn't as blunt, but she slowly pulled away too. At first, she still called. Still texted. But the calls got shorter. The visits less frequent. The excuses more frequent. And then came the day after the divorce was finalized. Rachel called Logan again, trying to rewrite the story. "Your father abandoned me," she said, her voice cracking. Logan didn't yell. Didn't even hesitate. His response? Flat. Final. Brutal. "No, Mom. You lost him. He left because you broke him." Those were Logan's last words before the line went dead. And just like that, she lost both of us. When the judge stamped the final approval on our divorce, Rachel didn't cry. She didn't yell. She didn't say a word. She just sat there, blinking at the paperwork in front of her like she was waiting for something else to happen. Like maybe I'd glance across the courtroom, have a change of heart, and call the whole thing off. But I didn't. I stood up, straightened my jacket, and walked out of that courtroom without looking back. And I think that's when it finally sank in for her. This wasn't a timeout. It wasn't a punishment. This was permanent. She had spent 5 years sneaking around behind my back, thinking she held the upper hand. Yeah? I was the one who vanished. For weeks after the divorce, she tried everything, called my phone, still blocked. Sent me emails, I deleted them without even opening. She begged the kids to convince me to talk to her. They didn't. And when she finally accepted that I was really gone, she turned to the only other person she thought she still had, Gavin. I wasn't there when it happened, but Logan told me later. She showed up at Gavin's condo in Northbridge, expecting comfort. Expecting that now, with the marriage behind her, he'd finally be hers. But the second she brought up the divorce, he laughed. "Come on, Rachel. What did you think this was?" She had burned down everything we built. Our family, our home, our trust. For him. And he couldn't have cared less. Gavin never wanted commitment. He wanted the thrill, the sneakiness, the adrenaline of cheating without consequences. Now that the game was over, so was he. He'd already moved on to someone else. Rachel had traded a life of loyalty and love for a fantasy. And in the end, she meant nothing to him. By the time I got the final paperwork in the mail, I was already living in another city. Settled into a quiet condo in Pinehurst, far from Oak Ridge, far from her, far from everything we once shared. For the first time in decades, I was on my own. But I wasn't lonely. I was free. She had spent years lying, thinking she was in control. But in the end, I was the one who walked away without ever turning back. 2 years passed. 2 years since I left our home with nothing but a duffel bag and the truth. 2 years since the courtroom. 2 years since I cut her out of my life completely. And now, I was back in Oak Ridge. Not for her. For Logan's wedding. The venue was gorgeous. An estate out near Northbridge, tucked against the desert hills, with palm trees lining the drive and string lights glowing in the courtyard. The air smelled like citrus and mesquite, and the sky was just starting to turn gold. I pulled up in a sleek black Mercedes rental, stepped out in a navy suit, and straightened my cuffs. By my side was Lauren Peterson, a woman I met while traveling through Spain. She wasn't a rebound. She wasn't some placeholder. She was someone who got me. She'd left behind her own life too. One that didn't fit anymore. Like me, she'd learned how to start over. We weren't rushing anything, but she made me laugh again. She reminded me what it felt like to trust someone. As we walked into the courtyard, I could feel the eyes on us. Some old friends, extended family, people who weren't sure what to say after everything that had happened. And then, I saw her, Rachel. She was standing near the entrance, wearing a dark green gown, her blonde hair styled like she used to wear it years ago. She looked put together but not whole. There was a hollowness behind her eyes, a tiredness that didn't come from lack of sleep, came from regret. Her gaze landed on me, and froze. Then she saw Lauren slip her hand into mine, and something inside her cracked. Before I could even react, she stormed across the courtyard, heels clicking on the stone. She grabbed my wrist, her voice sharp and unsteady. "We need to talk." A few guests turned to look. I didn't raise my voice, didn't even flinch. I calmly pulled my arm from her grip. "There's nothing left to talk about, Rachel." Lauren stepped back, giving me space. She knew this moment might come, Rachel's last attempt to reclaim control. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Is she your girlfriend? Are you going to marry her?" Her voice cracked. She hated asking, but she couldn't help herself. I met her gaze, calm and steady. "That's not your business." She blinked fast, struggling to keep it together. "John, please." Now her voice was louder, edged with panic. Her hands clenched at her sides as she tried to hold on to whatever dignity she had left. People were watching now, some trying not to stare, others openly frozen. Then, before I could say another word, Sophie stepped in. She'd been standing nearby with Logan. The second she saw her mother spiraling, she walked straight over, heels echoing on the stone. She stepped between us, facing her mom dead on. And in a voice sharper than I'd ever heard from her, she said, "Mom, you made your choice. You betrayed Dad for years. You don't get to cry about it now. Either behave or leave." Silence. Rachel opened her mouth, like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out, because there was nothing left to say. She had already lost everything. I didn't stick around for another word. I gave her one last look, then turned and walked away, hand in hand with Lauren. And for the first time in years, I felt completely, truly free. Now it's your turn. What would you have done in John's shoes? Would you have given Rachel a second chance? Or left her with nothing? Drop your thoughts in the comments.